Welcome back to the Retro Sports Gamer channel, and I'm back again here with DT. As promised, we have to finish out our top 25 best retro sports games of all time. So we're going 10 through 1 tonight. What's up, DT?
What's going on, man? Happy Thursday night. I got my Alaskan Husky IPA. It's my beer of choice for the night. Keeping the tradition going. Looks like you are too.
Yeah, I'm cruising through beers tonight. This is a Chicago one. It's called Sun Crusher. It's a wheat ale from Revolution Brewing. This one's really good. It hits the spot in the summer. And then this one I found in the back of the fridge. This is probably a couple months old, but it's a short fuse IPA bomb.
Looks like it's about 30 years old.
Yeah, no, it's a local brew actually. It's from I think Schiller Park, Illinois. So both of these are local.
Yeah. So man, we're going down to number 1 today, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Last time we talked, I believe when we got to like number 17 on your list, you're like, okay, these are the games where I'm like, let's do this, let's play this game. Anytime you want, I'll come and play you. So, I wasn't quite there on my list at 17, but these top 10 are where it's at. Like, I'm ready to travel to a tournament to play in any of these top 10 games.
And just for all your loyal listeners out there, speaking of adventures of that nature, you had some, but you're going to get into it. That's what you're playing. We're not going to get into that tonight, right?
What's that?
You had some adventures of late, and some Tecmo-oriented adventures.
Oh yes. No, we'll save those for I think probably the weekend. I'm going to talk about those. Good times for sure. Tecmo tournaments. We might even talk about that game later on our list, but yeah, I'll talk about that soon.
Cool.
So you want to?
I'd like to apologize to everybody for just seeing this screen in my eyeballs. It's just, this is not, actually they gave me the option. Do you want to go with the non-glare glasses? It was only like $30 extra. I was like, no. When's that going to come into play? Really?
Did you get that Tecmo NBA basketball working?
I didn't actually. This is on the EverDrive, but I wanted to get the music going just to kind of, you hear that a little bit?
I hear it now.
Yeah, it's probably not going to really improve the the viewing experience at all. But
I think it will. This is a good jam.
It gets me fired up.
All right, you want to start with your 10th game on the list?
Okay, so speaking of fired up, nothing gets Tom more fired up than a good golf game. So this is just some Nintendo fun right here. We got NES Open for the NES. This came out in 1991. So that means there's definitely a small portion of people who don't know shit about it because they had already moved on to the next big thing, the 16-bit era. But as we've discovered, as we both know and both have advocated, there's some gems in the late NES library. And this one, this is born in 91. Obviously, that's the year of Tecmo Super Bowl, so it's not exactly like it's, a dinosaur. But it just happened to be the best golf game in that era by a long shot. So what's cool about it? Basically, it's just really just kind of very tight. Just nothing really cheap happens. You have a lot of control over what you do, except it's decent, good, really good and challenging though. Like the thing goes really fast and you can either hit it left or right. So it's difficult to hit it straight, but it's very fair, you're given a chance. And some of the other golf games, like they're really cheap, you hit it and it kind of like, I don't know, like for example, this game, Lee Trevino's Fighting Golf Challenge was really kind of lame. You had to bounce it like short of the green and get, bounce it on the green. Something like there's a sand trap. You had to like hook it around or something, try to pull some crap like that. This one is realistic. You can land on the green, check it, and I don't know, some of the other cool stuff. You got like these animations where like if the ball's close to the hole, you know, it like kind of goes right, it slows it down, goes right by it, or if you dunk it, it's pretty cool. And then like I don't know, you got like Mario and Luigi, you got Donkey Kong's inexplicably your bookie or somebody. He like keeps track of your cash. He's like either a banker or a bookie. I could never figure it out, but he's in the mix. So yeah, you know, big time. You know, for me, golf games are where it's at. Golf and video games is a match made in heaven. And NES Open is a game that I have bought like 4 times probably in my life.
Chris Reeve in the chat says, I love NES Open.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, why did I buy it 4 times? I think because the first one like kind of crapped out on me. So I bought it again. And then I also bought it for the Wii. And then I bought it again for the Wii U. That only cost $1. You could rebuy your Wii Virtual Console games for the Wii U for $1. So I was like, gotta have it. Gotta have it. I don't want to. I need it. Need it on the Wii U. And I would play that for hours.
Yeah, Nintendo was good about getting people to repurchase games, especially on the Wii. It was like, oh, you can download this virtually on the Wii, and I got this controller that I could just turn sideways and play it. So, yeah, they got me with a lot of those too. Yeah,
it's pretty hard not to. I mean, it was nice to have all that stuff right there for you, and you know, a lot of those. I mean, as a collector, it's not easy to find this stuff, really, especially some of the certain games. So, Virtual Console is pretty clutch. Yeah, just to kind of wrap up the NES Open, let you get into your number 10 here. You know, it's ranked really high here, mostly just because it just has a lot into it. As far as like just it being, you can play it really fast. And that's important for a golf game, speed, because golf games can get awfully slow. This one you can play fast, and it just has a lot of polish with the animations and just sort of, and the physics are really realistic, which is not the case for most like golf games of that era. And I believe Shigeru Miyamoto was very involved with the design of this game, and it shows. So there's there's a lot. There's kind of some fun stuff regarding the Japanese version being like different, more difficult. But I don't know how many people are really too familiar with that type of thing anyway. So they dumbed it down for the U.S. because they knew that we wouldn't stand for a hard game. Just like with Mario 2. They didn't release it here because it was too hard. They thought that we would revolt.
I kind of agree with that choice too, because I've played the Mario 2 version for Japan. I believe it was on the Mario All-Stars cart called Lost Levels, and that's definitely not something I want to play.
It's friggin' hard. I've played it for a while, like last year, for like the first time ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was just like, this is fun. I'm trying to beat this, and then just eventually I was just like, this isn't fun. I lose
the NES Open, that's one that I just completely missed. Wasn't attracted to golf games and haven't picked it up. But based off your recommendation, I think I'm gonna have to check that one out. It's kind of cool that it has the Mario characters in there with Donkey Kong. So I'm excited to try that one out. And there's another comment that says Donkey Kong is a pimp in NES Open.
He's a pimp?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. I mean, that could be. His backstory is never explained. It kind of doesn't not fit with what they give you there. But what do you got? So by the way, this is top 10 action, man. This
is top 10 action. My 10th game might be a little bit more exciting overall to everyone, but we'll let them be the judge. NHL 94.
Okay.
Sega Genesis. This game was one that I didn't own growing up. Had a Super Nintendo, but this is one that friends had. NHL 94 and some of the other NHL games too. You know, it's like it seemed like everyone that had a Genesis had one of the NHL games. NHL 94 has a thriving community that plays this game online in live tournaments. I just played in my first live tournament of NHL 94 in Green Bay in February of this year. It was a blast. I met some of the best players in the game, Angry Jay and King Raff, and they're cool guys. And the community's a lot of fun. They love the game. They know they break down this game just like we break down Tecmo Super Bowl. So
it lends itself to that type of breakdown.
Yeah,
I'm glad you have a top 10. That's where it belongs because of mostly because of the community that's lived on, I'd say. But for you, I mean, is it did you pick out that game because you like that game the most, or because because of its legendary status? Is that more just a stand-in for the whole series?
No, well, I do have a story behind this, as I do most of these games. So NHL 94 was the one that we picked up later. I'm 19, 20, around there, and we play this by my friend Dave's house before we start drinking and go out and do something. This is the game that we would play. Instead of, at the time, we could have been playing PlayStation 2 games. We just wanted something simple, fun. We were kind of just going back to the games that we used to play, and this was the one that we played. And the thing about NHL 94, a lot of guys say this, it just feels right, like good hockey. Mm-hmm. And that's really just how it feels to me too when I play it.
And that's kind of my feeling too. I feel like it's the most feels like you're actually playing an NHL game of all the classic NHL games.
Yeah. So that's my story behind this one. Then later on, finding out there's a community, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I used to play that game a lot too, not competitively the way that it's played now, but I did have a lot of fun playing NHL 94. And on the Genesis specifically, the Super Nintendo version, I have that game as well. I've played it, and there's a lot of differences, in the game. It plays similar, but the Genesis one is the one that's at least agreed upon in the U.S. is like the deeper game and the one that people go to. So.
I like it. And, of course, I ended up siding in the end with NHL 96 as my top EA hockey game, but love it. NHL 94, I got absolutely zero qualms with you slipping that into the top.
I think you got to pick one of them in the top 25. It wouldn't be right if you didn't.
Yeah. All right, I'm moving on. Number 9. Okay, another potential head scratcher. The year is 1992, and the Super Nintendo is now on the scene. And, it's basically taken over. Obviously, we're still playing Tecmo Super Bowl and Tecmo NBA basketball for the NES, but we're looking to see what the SNES has to offer. And some of it was kind of weird. It kind of took a while. It took a while for SNES to get going with the sports games. But they had one game that I don't think is regarded as a classic, but for me, it's a top 10 game. It's number 9. It's Extra Innings. Get it? Can't see it.
Little curveball, another curveball, I think.
Yep, a literal curveball.
Yeah.
From Sony. Basically, this game, it has all these teams, and it's kind of like RBI Baseball in that every single player is like a pudgy little kid-looking type guy. They all look the same, and but they have different stats, and their stats are very well, thought out as far as speed, contact, power. Okay, so those are the only 3 stats. But then there's pitching. But the gameplay is just is the best. It's like you would hit L and R to run faster. It just felt really good, to do that. Like instead of just watch your guy run, like you could make him run faster.
Like track and field game in between, Yeah.
And the pitching was tight. Like you could hit the instead of doing like your regular like basically the pitching is similar to that of like RBI Baseball, where you have the fast, slow, left, right. You move your guy around on the mound, and then you could hit him with the A button, and that would do a sinker ball, and it would go like that, right? So you knew it was coming maybe if you recognize it. And then that was basically just a swing and a miss if your pitcher had that rating good enough. However, you could mix it up and hit him when you hit the slow ball, it would also go. But that was a changeup. that would go across the plate for a strike. So if they're like, oh, this is going to be a the low pitch that you can't hit, I'm just going to sit on this. You can go across for strikes. Just a little tiny thing makes all the difference in the strategy and it being a fun game to play. So obviously you got these generic sort of teams that have these really clever names, but they're just random. They're not real. There's no MLB action here. But what it did have is it had 2 edit teams, and you could put anybody you want in there, and we would exhaust that feature to death by just creating all these crazy teams, and it just never got old at all. Just making the 2 teams. So that's my number 9, Extra Innings for the Super Nintendo. Have you ever even freaking played it?
This is another game that I haven't played. So it's crazy that we're talking about top 10 now, and there's games in there that I've never played. We'll see if I hit any that you haven't played. But I feel like in this time period, from the mid 80s to early 2000s, there were so many baseball games out there.
Yeah.
It was insane. Would you say
there's no question there was more baseball games than any other sport by a lot?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Baseball games had the most video games of any of the sports, I believe. And so this is just one that I missed out on. You said it came out in 1992?
Yeah. It was right at the very beginning of Super Nintendo.
Yeah, see, this is one that just didn't get a chance to play it. Like a lot of the old school baseball games, so I got to try this one out, and I'm sure it's one that I would enjoy as well, based off what you were saying about it.
I mean, really, there's not much to it other than just like your standard pennant mode, and I mean, the music is awesome. Everything. The only thing it doesn't have going for it, and that's a huge thing for me. So it should tell you how much I really like just playing this game is the MLB factor. Pretty much I value that higher than just about anything when it comes to these games. It's big for me. I like to play with the real guys. That's
right.
A huge part of the appeal for these types of games.
I agree.
Yeah. Not this one, and it didn't really matter. Me and my friends, we would play this for, we would keep coming back to it years later. And years, just keep coming back to it because we just liked playing it so much. So, very, very, very much confident with dropping it in the top 10.
All right.
Where are we going next for you?
I'm busting out my number 9, and you might see a reoccurring theme starting with this game, but it's College Slam.
College Slam.
This one is kind of like part of the NBA Jam family. It plays pretty much just like an NBA Jam game. The thing that's interesting about College Slam, though, is this is when Acclaim kind of spun off from Midway.
Okay.
So Acclaim, basically all the knowledge that they had from porting over the NBA Jam games, they used that to create College Slam. And they didn't change too much of the game. This game has awesome music. It had a lot of the college teams that you would see be the bigger ones that are in Division I, playing in the NCAA tournament. You can edit the rosters to put the player's name in there, the player names. The players they kind of were like the guys that the skills that of the college guys that were on the team at the time, but they weren't necessarily the same skin tone or player size.
Yeah. They were loosely based on their real life counterparts.
Yeah, and I think that was just a way to get around the NCAA the player issue that they have and that they still have now. But the way around it was they had the NCAA license for the teams, but in this one, they obviously don't have rights to the player names.
Yeah.
One of the guys that's kind of similar is the Wake Forest has Tim Duncan,
exactly.
But it's like a big white dude with blonde hair.
Oh yeah, that's right. I totally remember that.
Yeah. But he has all the skills like it's Tim Duncan. So you put his name in there, and then it's like you're playing with Tim Duncan. But the game has awesome music. In between halftime, they give you like tips on what you should do in the next half to be more successful. You could call timeouts and sub your players in versus like NBA Jam where you just sub them in between the quarter. The one that the Super Nintendo one brought to difference that the Super Nintendo one brought to the table was tip dunks.
That's yes.
Yeah, so
that's pretty key.
The chat saying, "Hey, can you hold the game up?" Yeah, I think I'm doing that. I do have a story about College Slam too. I was really into college basketball at one point after the NBA, and I rented this game, and I really wanted it. And I'm pretty sure we made a trip to the Funko-Land, me and my mom, and for some reason I couldn't get it. Either I didn't have enough money to buy it, or they were out of stock. So somehow I convinced my mom that, you know what, Mom, I got this NBA Jam TE. Just go into the video store and trade them for College Slam. You know, not knowing how business operates. I just nagged her and nagged her and nagged her until she finally did it. I think she's like, well, I'll just teach them a lesson here, because she probably knew they weren't going to do it. So she went into the Value Video in Berwyn and asked them if we could trade NBA Jam TE for College Slam, and it got denied. So I never had this game growing up, but I rented it many times. And
I did. I don't know if it was me or my friend Darren who had it, but I played it a lot. So here's my College Slam story, and it is a good game. Definitely, you know, deserves its props. I guess I don't know why. There's just some certain corny things about it that I guess kept it out of the mix for me, such as just some of the random things the announcer would say at weird times, and the fact that a couple players on the game had the receding hairline.
Yes. In college, yeah.
It was like, what? This guy's supposed to be 20. What's going on?
You do see that though, honestly, in NCAA. Like if you watch enough college basketball, there are guys that have that already.
So here's what we did. We thought it'd be fun to put some names that we didn't just want to put any old names in. We wanted to figure out what each guy looked like. So we went through and wrote down the, you know, what point guard through center, who, you know, what they looked like, you know. It's like the big blonde guy, big blonde or something. Like we would put some sort of little notation for each guy. And then when we created it, we try to make that somebody who kind of looked like that guy. So like we like figured out. I think they were all. It was like 90% of it was like, or like half of it was like famous alumni for those schools, and the other were just like random NBA players or whatever. I don't know. And we ended up just picking a bunch of dudes and putting in rosters that corresponded with their
look.
So that's how
a cool way of doing it.
I mean, it was quite the project, but it'd be fun. I bet if I went back to like my parents' house, I could probably, that'd be a pretty fun discovery. Find the piece of paper, a very crucial piece of paper that listed all that stuff. That was a very important thing to know where it was, because we did play that game from time to time. It was fun.
Yeah, it's a good one. I recommend it. If you pick it up, it's not an expensive game. A lot of times you'll get player data from whoever owned it previously, and they'll have some player names in there for you. But College Slam, it's a great game, great music, great gameplay. Yeah. It's a gem for sure.
All right, moving on. Number 8. So this was like probably of all the entire list, this was the toughest one. Extra Innings, number 9. Who wins the Super Nintendo baseball crown for me, though? It ends up being the kid, Ken Griffey Jr. This is Ken Griffey Jr.'s presents Major League Baseball, not to be confused with Ken Griffey Jr. Ken Griffey Jr.'s winning run, which you had in your top 25.
Right.
So I went with the first one. Totally different game. This is one of those ones where the sequel factor is very low, aside from the fact it's got the kid in it.
Pretty much, yeah.
But you know, while while extra innings might have had a slight gameplay edge for me, gameplay on this one's pretty damn good. It looks great. The game looks great. It has a bunch of little fun things in it that are awesome, like jumping to rob a homer, and like bowling over the catcher. Like when you try to score a run, and I'm pretty sure I'm trying to remember if the catcher ever dropped it, or if he just got slammed, and it was kind of dramatic, and then he would come up with the ball. I'm trying to remember if he ever dropped it. I don't know if he did, but at the time when this game came out, it was kind of like you didn't really expect. I just remember at the time being like, "What the heck? My favorite player has a game for the Super Nintendo, and it has all the major league teams." Like, wow! I just remember it kind of being a huge deal when it came out. And
Do you know what's interesting about that is in Chicago there was Frank Thomas baseball games too.
Yeah.
But still, me here and some of the friends I had, we wanted the Ken Griffey games as well.
Well, I don't really. I mean, I wasn't a big Frank fan, but I don't remember really hearing much about those games. These games are good. It was fun. It was just a really fun game. My favorite is just the just going Stevie right and he's out, and just the music. The music is awesome. It did not have all the players. It only had the kid and a bunch of guys that looked exactly like their real life counterparts. But you could go in and edit the names, which of course me and my nerd friends effing did. Within about a week of getting it, that ended up being one of the most fun things. Just trying to figure out. We had this base Blitz, what did we have? We had some kind of almanac type thing, that had all the stats from the year before. So we were like, okay, that's that guy, that's that guy, that's that guy. But then there was each team had one or two guys that just weren't mentioned. So we had to we'd bust out the newspaper or something and try to be oh, that guy kind of looks like this. And then somehow it ended up being a huge project that we spent a ton of time on. It was very satisfying to put in all the names. And then we would play the whole effing season. I had two friends that we all played I don't know if I ever made it to 162 games. We would play at least, I know I at least played over 100 games twice in my life of a season, playing every game. And that, it was just fun to play. Yeah, it was just fun to play. We would just play it and play it and play it and play it. And then we'd play against each other, and it was really fun to play against each other. The baseball stadiums, at the time, that was a really big deal. It had all the stadiums. It looked totally different, each team stadium. Doesn't seem like a huge deal now. It was a major deal in 1994, 94 when this game came out. So just a fun, bright, fun experience. I have one huge beef with the game. Ready for this? You can't make an error. I hate that. I just can't stand it. It pisses me off. The only reason it's acceptable though is because fielding's kind of hard. Just moving your guy into the right place. Someone will, the crack of the bat, and it's a hard, ground or line drive. You have to react right away to move your guy into position.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I hear myself back. Do you hear that?
I do not.
Okay, let me try again. So, I don't hear it anymore. So, one of the things I was going to say is when we were talking about baseball games is this game in particular does not have a zoomed out camera view for fielding. That's one thing I noticed. The game has a ton of character, and it has cartoony baseball graphics, which look awesome on the Super Nintendo. But that was the other thing that I wanted you to comment on. It doesn't have that zoomed out fielding view. So does that bother you in this one, or?
It was tremendously hard to field. Yeah, you could set it. At first we set it to auto fielding because we were just making it. We were just running willy nilly, trying to catch fly balls. And they were like, "Nah, we can figure this out. and then it became really kind of fun challenge to do that, to like try to catch fly balls and not really be able to tell. It just took a lot of experience and skill. But it just became kind of a cool thing and kind of a fun part of the game for us. But yeah, I agree. I'd prefer like RBI baseball, where you can see the whole, you can kind of get a sense of what the F is happening. But I mean, at the end of the day, though, there's very little qualm. Like any game where you can actually play like, 50, 60 games, in like a couple week span, that means it's a good game. So.
For sure. There's a lot of people that love that game, so it's a great choice on your top 10.
Yeah. Right on. What do you got?
I'm going to bust out my number 8, and this is a wrestling game, WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64. So why do I choose No Mercy as one of the top wrestling games of all time? It's because in this one, they really put it all together. The wrestling games made by Aki, published by THQ, they had the gameplay down with World Tour, Revenge, but there was still a lot missing that was in previous games. I talked about Warzone earlier. There were some things that Warzone did with the music and the commentary and the player or the wrestlers actually talking that never came to fruition in any of these games, and a lot of it's because of the limitations of the cartridge. But there were things that were happening, like with the SmackDown games on PlayStation, where you can go to the backstage and you could fight each other. But the wrestling in that game was like super fast paced, so it wasn't even close to the gameplay of the N64 wrestling games. But in years previous, it had more features, basically. The other thing that the other games had, some of the other wrestling games, was a storyline that had branches. So if you lost a match, you would follow one storyline. If you won a match, you'd follow another storyline. Then you would have like meetings backstage with like the Undertaker, and then he would push you or something, and you would have to make a choice, like, should I punch him back or should I say, I'm sorry, Undertaker? Stuff like that. So,
sorry, Mr. Undertaker.
Yeah. So there was the story mode in this game, and like WrestleMania 2000 didn't have it, Revenge didn't have it. It was just about the hardcore wrestling. So this one, it had the backstage fights. It had the storylines that went different routes depending on what you were choosing. The other thing that this game had is once you won those title belts, you can defend them in exhibition mode. So, say I won the hardcore championship, then I can defend it against you, and you could like just defend it back and forth with your friends. And the other thing, this one had more matches than all the other ones, so it added cool things like ladder matches, which were huge at the time. Also, special guest referee. Now, that one was a ton of fun because you could play with, what's that?
Explain the special guest referee.
Special guest referee, say me and you are playing with another friend, where all three of us are in the match. But like, I'm The Rock, you're Kane, and then Stone Cold's a special guest referee. But it's it's the guy playing with you, because Nintendo 64's got the 4 controller slots, and they can decide to just start beating up on one guy. They can ref it straight down the line, and based on when the pin's happening, they could tap slow for the 1, 2, 3 count, or they could tap super fast.
All right, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so it's like your friend could be messing with you the whole time, or he could basically dictate the whole match if he wants to, or he could ref it straight down the line. So those are always a fun time, because Nintendo 64, it was before the online stuff. So having a match like that where you're having special guest referee, I mean, the arguments and just fun you would have it was just awesome.
That sounds pretty big time.
Yeah. So No Mercy, I mean, that is a game a lot of people talk about. And it's not an expensive game to pick up because it's sold so many.
Yeah,
Um,
very popular.
if you haven't played it, I would recommend giving it a shot. But it was like one of those games that was just awesome in the time period. If you were playing Nintendo 64, all the multiplayer games, it was one of the best ones. So it's best experienced with at least 2 or 3 other people.
Nice. Yeah, of course. So for me, your wrestling is like my golf. Not a lot of crossover there, but yeah. I mean, you could tell just like the stuff that I know about the game. You know, that I knew what made it legendary. You know, like its story mode, and you know, what about the creative player seemed pretty well fleshed out.
Yeah, that's another thing I missed. But the created player was the most expansive out of all of them. You could also create a female wrestler, which you couldn't do before, or it was hard to do based off the options. So yeah, it just like fleshed everything out.
They just went deep with it.
Yeah.
That's just I mean,
But
that's
you know,
so huge for sports games.
the other thing too is like they realized they didn't have to change much. Like the Nintendo 64 wrestling games, there was 2 WCW ones and 2 WWF ones made by Aki Games. There were some other ones on there, but it got better each time. They just added more and the game got better. You know, that doesn't always happen, as we know, for games that move on to future sports games. It actually, I think it rarely happens, but in this case, it doesn't.
Well, sometimes you see a lot in the sports like kind of franchises. Like if one game like just totally nails the gameplay, then all of a sudden they're like, well, let's spend actually a little bit of time thinking about some other ways to make it good. You know, and that's then that's the game that really crushes it, becomes like legendary a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be the case here. Anyway, let's keep it rolling. Enough with the baseball bullshit. We're going back to hoops. So, number 7 for me. Basically, what we're dealing with here is EA definitely had it going. They had, they were making incremental progress with the Bulls versus Blazers, stuff like that. There's a few of those, maybe 2. There's maybe 2 of those types of games. It was just they got a little bit better. I'm trying to think. It was Bulls versus Lakers, I think, was the first one, then Bulls versus Blazers.
There might have been a Lakers Celtics, if I'm not mistaken. If someone in the chat could help us out.
Not sure about
It might
that.
have been the first. Maybe. I could be wrong. I know the first one I seen was Bulls versus Lakers, but
Yeah, so they had Bulls Lakers, and then they had Bulls versus Blazers, which was a little better. And then they had NBA Showdown, which was a little bit better. And then, out of freaking nowhere, they dropped NBA Live on our faces. NBA Live 95 was the first one. And it just absolutely took everything that was dope about those EA hoops games and then just added so much more, which was basically, at the very core of it was just all of a sudden you got a game that plays as fast as the NBA. Because the big thing about those previous games was that the guys would just kind of amble around the court at a snail's pace.
Well, the thing about the Showdown was faster than the other ones.
Yeah.
But the defense was still, the defenders would stick on you like glue. It was so hard to get around them.
Exactly. Yeah, and then it ended up, just being kind of a, like a chess match type thing. Move the chess pieces around. And NBA Showdown was really fun, but it was like get the ball to your guy who has like an automatic shot that he can hit from one spot on the court. The superstars all had that one move, which was sweet.
Yeah, that was cool.
But I mean, that game was awesome. NBA Showdown was awesome. I freaking love that game. But then, I mean, NBA Live. I mean, there was zero. I don't think I played NBA Showdown since NBA Live 95 came out, because all of a sudden now these guys are running around. You actually have to, move your dude around, and which is not easy to stay with them, because they're just running really fast down the court, pulling up, hitting threes like just flying across. As long as you shot, it didn't really matter how fast you were running and what momentum was carrying. You could just put up a shot, and which was unrealistic, but at the same time, it was fun. And then also you got all these guys that are throwing down crazy dunks, and all the live games that came after were dope for the Super Nintendo. But the reason I like one kind of really small thing I liked about Live 95 and why I've always kind of gone back to this one is because on defense, they had this random thing where basically if you went up to like contest a dunk, if your player was strong enough, he just pushed the dude out the way. Just displace his ass. Which created some really hilarious, unrealistic things. But it just made the game a lot better, in my opinion. Just made it, more fun.
Yeah, EA, they were good about that back in the 90s. Like, they were going for simulation, obviously, with the Bulls versus Blazers, NBA Showdown. And it just wasn't working out. So they went the complete opposite direction. And now it's like impossible to play man defense. You're just flying all over the isometric court.
Yeah. And all of a sudden now we're dealing with this court.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I guess I could deal with that. It seemed awesome at the time.
But it definitely was more fun playing that way. So that's why a lot of people like the NBA Live series. And they were, even though they were still going for simulation, the limitations at the time, it still had like a pretty good arcade feel to it, I would say.
Yeah. And, I think over the years, like the Live series, we were talking about how it's just had so many ebbs and flows. But the best, like, wait, which of those is good? Is ebb or flow good? I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess ebb is high and flow is low. I don't know. Anyway, whatever the good stuff is out of that shit, that's when we're going back to Live. Lost my train of thought. But what I'm trying to say is that Live as a series, since the very beginning, has worked best when it plays fast and loose. When it's just freestyle, basically. So this is one of the best ones when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And I just remember for years, like we would play without like backcourt, without out of bounds even, just to make it even more fast paced. Sometimes we would take the fouls off, which made it really fun. Then that ended up being a little ridiculous, but yeah, good. I mean, just a fun game, and you can do lots of different stuff. As far as you can trade guys and come up with some different rosters here and there, and make a little like a super team, of like the 12 best, like 12 starters. We would do that all the time. So just pretty fun. And then it had a lot of different ratings and stuff. For the time, it was a big deal. So Live 95 definitely pushed the hoops a little further.
Yeah, it did. And I think they even, later on, they took some stuff from NBA Jam, even though it wasn't simulation. You could play an arcade mode. Like they had a push animation in NBA Live 98 and some of the other ones. And I think there was even like if you ran into a guy, he would throw out his arms and push him.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they didn't even call a foul on that. You just took the ball and went down for a dunk.
So that's the best though, is because we play without fouls sometimes, but when you play with fouls is best because every now and then you just try and push a guy, and a lot of times you get away with it. And sometimes you push the living shit out of him, and you get away with it. That always just cracked us up to no end.
Yeah,
like, not a foul. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's crazy that it didn't automatically recognize every push a guy to the floor as a foul. So, yeah, another great revolutionary game in there for your top 10. So,
what's next?
My number 7, and this is my favorite hockey game of all time. And I don't make it any secret that I like sports games that give you an arcade sports feel. So it is Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey on the Nintendo 64.
That is a wall.
Yes. So the thing about this one, and I didn't know at the time, this is another Midway game. I think Atari actually produced the arcade cabinet, but Midway developed the game. And I would say even the N64 one might even be better than the arcade cabinet because I played the arcade cabinet. I didn't even know it existed until about 3 or 4 years ago.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Yeah, they're pretty rare. So Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey, it just makes everything that was fun about hockey at the time and puts it into this game. So one of the things that it has a view, like if you're viewing it on TV. So it's it's the side view. It's not the up and down the ice that you see in like NHL 94 or most of the other simulation games, which I liked because at the time I definitely wanted to view things how I saw it on TV. The other thing that Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey had is the puck streak.
Yeah.
Being from Chicago, not having cable, there was no Blackhawks games on regular TV ever. So my first introduction to hockey games was NHL on Fox, and they would have the puck streak, and that would make it easy to follow what was going on TV.
Yeah. It was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, it was a big deal. So they had the puck streak in Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey, which I thought was awesome because it was like, viewing it on TV. But it's an arcade style hockey game. So the other thing you could do if you're throwing checks, you could check a guy and he'll do like 3 flips, and then there'll be like an ambulance animation that comes out like meow, 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 meow.
Yeah, heck yeah.
So this stuff like that, it goes to extremes with the check. Like you said when I first mentioned this game, this goalie's a wall. Like if the goalie makes consecutive saves, he'll actually turn into a brick wall in front of the goal to show like his dominance.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and then
that's one of my favorites.
It being a Midway game, if you hit the shoot button and the down C at the same time, you can shoot like a flaming puck, and if it hit the net, the whole goal would go on fire. But really what did it for me with Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey was my experience with this one growing up. So this is an early Nintendo 64 game, and as I've already talked about, Nintendo 64 might be the best multiplayer console of all time. That's another argument to be had on another day. But my friends on the block, Joe and Bob, their dad had a huge big screen TV downstairs. One of those huge projector ones.
Nice.
So who knows? It's like 60 something inches, and we're playing Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey on that thing, and they have 4 controllers. And we're just down there all night playing the game. We're eating pizza, drinking sodas, just playing Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey. It's keeping your records like an arcade game. It's basically like an arcade experience in the basement, and it was just a blast. And I
little things that put a game over the top, put it in a number 8 hole or number 7.
Yeah, exactly. Like your experience with the game. But I recommend it. It's a fun game. Obviously, you're not going to get scoring like hockey games. You're going to be scoring double digits in a lot of games. But it's just a blast, and like I said, it keeps all your arcade leaderboards. And I think you need a controller pack for that. But it's a really good game. It's got all the NHL stars in it. And it's my number 7 on the list. So.
Right on. Yeah, no, I played this game a lot. Definitely was a big fan. It was just really fun, fast-paced action. I totally support your decision. I guess really when it comes down to it, like, it's just kind of one of those things, like you have a lot of N64 games on there. I have a lot of Super Nintendo games on there, and it's really probably just me being just a little bit older than you,
Yeah.
You have the memories with these games, and, that's really one of the key factors. But when it comes down to it, what we're doing, we're covering a lot here between the two of them.
Exactly.
And I can absolutely vouch with just the gameplay just being awesome for that game. So.
Well, thank you.
Another winning choice. Okay. So listen, I'm throwing curveballs left and right. This is the one for me in the pantheon of classic retro games that is just is probably the thing that gets me the most fired up when it comes to, number one, how come nobody's ever played this game, heard of it, loves it, and just, pretty much just that. But it's NBA Action 95 for the Sega Genesis, starring David Robinson.
Whoa.
This is number 6. Have you ever played this game in your life?
No. I've played the NBA Action series. I think I talked about this last time on Game Gear, but I haven't played that particular version. But I know a little bit why you chose it, so I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I had the Sega, I got Action 95, and I remember we immediately fell in love with this game. Over the years, I would have definitely said Live 95. For years, we would go back to Live 95 just because it was just such a clean product, and the gameplay was fun. You get right into it. But in the years, in more recent years, NBA Action 95 has closed the gap and has overtaken Live 95 as the top hoops game. Well, top simulation hoops game. Obviously there's a couple more. So, but it's basically what it is it had way more roster customization ability, and the ratings were much more important. The ratings played so much more of a role, because you had inside out shooting, outside shooting, 3-point shooting, dunk range, dunk variety, okay, draw foul, commit foul, obviously, the steal, pass, offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding. It was way deeper than Live 95 in that regard. And then Live 95, you could create a team full of starters for each game. This, you could just move them all around. You can do whatever you wanted with them. You take a guy off this team, put it in this team, create up to 40 players, from scratch. So you could put legends in there and create them how you wanted to create them.
Know that.
Whereas Live 96, you could put in a name of a player, which this was awesome, by the way. You could put in Chamberlain, and it would automatically make Wilt Chamberlain with the stats that they had for him, which is great. But in this, you could do how you could make any version of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar you wanted. The young Kareem, old Kareem. I don't know. That's a bad example. He was pretty consistently whatever his whole career. But you could do whatever you wanted. You could create college guys. We would create. Every year we'd go back and create all the latest guys that just joined the NBA. Or a handful of them, whatever. Just a nonstop basketball nerd quest with this game. And the reason this game probably isn't highly regarded, perhaps, is because it has a bunch of stupid ass things with it. Such as, number one, I could never get all that stuff we create, it would be gone. Sometimes you just boot it up, it's gone. Don't know why. The battery sucked. It didn't happen very often, but when it did, it was devastating.
Right. Yeah.
It killed the whole momentum, whatever you had going on there. And then it just has all these weird things like fouls that kind of don't make sense or kind of random. They tried to really make the fouls random, like the real NBA. It ends up just really confusing you a lot. And then just, I don't know, just weird glitches where all of a sudden the ball just goes out of bounds and nobody can get to it. And then the shot clock runs out as the ball is just sitting there 1 meter from where you can grab it, and you're just kind of watching it okay. or just stupid ass stuff. Some guy will get injured, and then one of your other guys is the one you can't use the rest of the game. Stuff like that. Just kind of normal glitch stuff that probably for a lot of people, including myself, were just kind of, man, this game, a bunch of dumb stuff is happening. But at the end of the day, over the years, I've been okay, so, but how does all that stuff really affect the gameplay that much? And the answer is no. This game is fun to play, without question. And it ends up being a total game of skill and just a little bit more simulation than Live 95, which was run and gun. this you have to like be a little more tactical, and it ends up being a really good test of hoops. And it's just fun to play against someone else. It's just a lot more you can do.
Is Marv Albert an announcer in this one as well?
Marv Albert is absolute at the top of his. This is the top of the. I can't really off the top of my head think of like a more enjoyable contribution that any announcer made to a video game than Marv Albert in this game. He says the most classic lines ever, such as "Serves up official."
That's a good one that he says.
Yeah. Oh, and it counts. Time's running out. Throws up a prayer. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much the #1 national announcer to get in '95.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the lines are iconic. It's just so much fun. Yeah, and then for whatever reason, man, like, I'll just tell you this one thing that was really funny about this is I just noticed one day I noticed that Derek Rubel was aka Tecmo Psycho.
Yeah,
was like had like set the record for like the biggest crush of the computer on this game, like on Twin Galaxies. And I was like, what? That's like the first time I ever heard anybody mention the game ever. So so I just like I don't know, I brought it up or something to him at Tecmo Madison. This is last year. The one at the High Noons. You weren't at that? Were you at that one?
Yes.
Tecmo 13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just remember whatever. I like just brought it up. I was like, oh, cool. Whatever. And we just had like a very brief conversation about it. And then way after the event, like it had been over for like it went way late in the night. And then I saw Derek and he was just hammered drunk. And I'm like, what's up, man? Let's go. Let's keep it going. You, NBA action. Let's do this. He's like, what are you talking? He was like, what are you talking about? Like, we going to play it right now? He's like, dude, I'm hammered. Like, obviously, I was pretty hammered too to even come up with that notion. Yeah. 12:30 p.m. But I was just fired up, just that someone else was like kind of into the game. It's just nobody knows about it. It's just crazy. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I think he goes for a lot of records. He's just good at video games in general. I've seen him just blast through Contra in like less than 12 minutes.
Yeah,
he's just a really good gamer. Like me, I'm not good like that on every game, but he could just plow through games. So I think he goes for those records.
Yeah, no, I mean it's he's just a gamer. Period. Hardcore. Just really enjoys being awesome at games.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day you'll challenge him for that NBA.
Maybe one day, yeah. Although I wonder how good he is against a human opponent. I know he can wax the living daylights out of the computer.
Yeah, it is a little bit different.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready for my number 6. So my number 6, you also see the arcade cabinet in the background. NFL Blitz 2000 for the Sony PlayStation. So this is
not the original.
Not the original. I like Blitz 2000.
Copy that.
Well, this was the first one I experienced. As far as a console version, was NFL Blitz 2000. The one thing Blitz 2000 brought to the table was 4-player Blitz. Whereas the original NFL Blitz only was 1-on-1.
So you played this on the PlayStation, but not the N64.
Yes, and I do have the N64 version, and I would recommend not playing that one because the frame rate is really poor.
What? That sucks.
Yeah, but on NFL Blitz 2000 on a PlayStation, it plays super smooth.
Huh.
It looks good enough. One thing that's cool about Blitz 2000 on the PlayStation is if you don't like the flashing, like pass indicator of the arcade cabinet, you can use icon passing by holding either L2 or R2. I forget which one it is. So you could throw to the receivers like it's Madden or something. You just hold it down and then you could hit circle or X. So
Useful.
what's that?
That's useful.
Yeah, definitely. So that's really useful. I used to play this again with the same guy I played NHL 94 with, my friend Dave. I played this a lot when it was out, current. And our thing would be my friend Dave's a pretty big guy. So he would invite me over. He lives across the alley. I would just take one of the frozen pizzas out of the fridge. I'd go over to Dave's house. We load it up with like garlic salt and oregano and like every single spice that he had in his cabinet. Chuck that thing in the oven, and then we'd play a couple games of Blitz 2000 and then smash the pizza. That was like our thing. It was like me versus him, but we were like super competitive. And Blitz 2000, just had a ton of fun playing this one. And the cool thing about, if you're not, I mean, everyone's probably familiar with NFL Blitz series, but you could do things that are way over the top that you've ever seen in any football game.
Yeah.
So
Big time.
There were games that tried to mock this, like NFL Extreme, but of course, this is another Midway developed game. Midway from Chicago, just killing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Super fun gameplay. This is my second favorite NFL football game of all time. It doesn't have the depth of the one that's my favorite, but NFL Blitz 2000 is always a good time. And if you're going to pick up a console version, I recommend you do it on the PlayStation or the Dreamcast. We're not talking about the Dreamcast as part of this top 10 in this era.
Mm-hmm.
I have every version of Blitz 2000 besides for like the Game Boy Color ones. So Blitz 2000, number 6 on my list.
I got no real reason. I have no beef with this whatsoever. It's not in my top 25. I didn't even make my honorable mention. I don't know. NFL Blitz, it seems like it's a slam dunk for me. I like the NFL. I like Midway games. I like arcade games. Just never really got into it. I was aware of people having fun with this game. Believe me. I definitely have had some fun with the game. I don't know why I didn't like it. I definitely did not like it. I just didn't feel a need to like go play it. Not my thing. So I'm not trying to take a dump on this game. I'm just saying for me it just didn't happen for me. So there you go.
Fair enough.
But I like it though. Let's see here. Where are we right now? We're number 5. Top
five.
Okay, so this is the one I think that's gonna get people the most fired up of all the games on this list. We're talking, of course, about golf for the Game Boy.
There it is.
We're busting out the Game Boy for this one. For one and only Game Boy list on either of our list. One and only Game Boy game on either of our lists. Yep. It's just straight up golf, son. Learn about it. So listen, I'm not gonna waste everybody's time here to explain to them why golf for the Game Boy is one of the best games ever. But when it comes to golf, I mean, it's a lot like NES Open, really. But it's obviously there's some differences, but just kind of rehash what makes a good golf game. Number one, not a lot of dick arounds in between shots. You just keep it rolling, keep the pace moving. That's important. Number two, realistic physics. Okay, some of the other early golf games were kind of wacky. Things, this just it felt like the ball was moving as it should, and it was a good amount of challenge. You could kind of kick ass with it a little bit. I had some good low rounds, but it was fair. It was difficult. You couldn't, you'd have some tough holes and whatnot. Just good challenge. And then, of course, when it comes to some of the things that make a good sports game, just sort of the character. Anytime you got like the Nintendo Touch, there's some character involved. So it's real on the Game Boy. That stuff is super subtle, but it's super important. You got, obviously you got Mario, but just like they had this thing that for me just elevates this game to epic status, which is when you finish your round, your guy, like the first 800 times you played the game, You'd finish your round, it would be over par because the game was kind of hard, and you would just kind of walk off the green. Okay? Then one day, you break par. Okay? You shoot a 71. And what happens? You and your caddy have a little moment, right? Like, yeah, like, or like he says, like, keep fighting or something like that. I don't know, or something like that. And then you get one of the top 5 rounds, like, which was you had to beat like 69 or something. I don't know, whatever it was. Then all of a sudden, you and your caddy are like going like, there's like an extended little sequence of like you guys celebrating after the round and doing like this fight chant. It's like, I mean, just stuff like that you know, when you first start playing, you don't even realize is a part of the game. And then it just hits you with that. You know, you're so excited. You finally put together this dream round, and then that's giving you this little extra animation. It seems like, I mean, it was a big deal at the time. It's the type of thing that ends up putting a game into the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I thought you were crazy sending me all these golf games on your top 25, but when I looked up gameplay footage of this game in particular, I immediately understood why you like this game. And it looked like something that I wanted to play, like the charm that you're talking about, the Nintendo Touch. It's just fast golf action. Like everything seemed to make sense. I'm like, wow, I think I really missed out on a gem here. Just because I wasn't into golf, but I could definitely see why this is that high on your list.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those games that even as a handheld crappy, you got like 4 colors involved, all of the green black variety, you still keep going back to it. And like, I got I've had this thing, the original Game Boy was kind of, there were some challenges.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
I don't even know how he played it.
But I got this pretty shortly after. This is the Game Boy Pocket. And I pretty much held on to this. Like, this has played a role for me, like, pretty much ever since I had it in, like, 1995 or whatever. So this is a quality product. Like, you can see this. And look at how small it is. I can put it in my I can put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
It's clutch. So it's good stuff.
I have the GameCube Game Boy adapter.
Yeah.
That's what I use. Put it on the console. Then it's all lit up. So I'm gonna get this golf game and give it a go and let you know what I think.
Well, and then but honorable mention. I kind of forgot to include all the Mario Golf games in my honorable mention. But there's a game that I never played called Mario Golf Advance Tour. I never had a Game Boy Advance. That's an epic game. If you ever get a chance, people love that game. So.
Good recommendation. We got a comment from the chat. Rogue Gamer says, Retro, please end the live stream so YouTube doesn't flag you for disinformation on golf.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. No, I think he's just saying, like, you got too many golf games in your top 25.
Well, hey, man, that's the end of the golf line for me. I got my golf in there. I threw down for golf. Feel very, very comfortable about where I rank those games. So what's your top number 5 here?
Okay, we're getting real serious. This game is very iconic. It's going to come to no surprise. It's the highest baseball game on my list. RBI Baseball for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
That's not no drama. This is my number 4 game.
Yeah. So, yeah, we could talk about this one together then, since it's your next one.
Yeah.
Number 5 on the list, RBI Baseball. Experienced it at a friend's house when I was young, and it just felt right. It looked a little cartoony because the guys are fat and you got this big bongo bat.
Yeah.
But when you played it, it just it felt good. The melody that keeps playing in the background, you play it for 20-something years, it gets annoying, but at the time, I thought it was pretty cool.
It was definitely cool at the time.
And one of the things that we talked about is the zoomed-out fielding view.
Yeah.
That means a ton when playing these baseball games. And in RBI Baseball, when there was a fly ball, the shadow would indicate where you need to be, and was very easy to follow. It's like a subtle touch, but
made all the difference in the world.
And another thing that people probably don't know about this game, because it has the Tengen. That's that was a spin-off from Atari, but the game was originally developed by Namco, so they were just publishing it for Namco under the Tengen brand.
Yeah.
And the reason this cartridge is black is because they basically had to go around Nintendo's licensing policy, and there's like a chip in here that goes around their lockout chip in the Nintendo system. So
yeah,
that's just a little tidbit there. But I'll let you talk a little bit more about RBI Baseball. Why is it number 4 on your list?
I mean, well, the at the time, this was the first game with Major League Baseball players. There might have been others. I don't know. The first one that you'd actually want to play for sure. And it only had the 8 teams, the pennant winners of each of the 4 divisions from like 86 and 87. And then it had 2, the American League and the National League, of just best of the rest, basically. So you had a lot of players to mess around with. And some of them were of the greatest, legends of the time. And I mean, that was just a huge deal. That was a huge deal. And, they actually had friggin', it mattered how good they were. Certain guys hit, better, and guys like Vince Coleman, Willie McGee were faster than everybody else. So, and then the pitching, clearly you had, oh my gosh, like just the idea that you could have a fastball pitcher like Dwight Gooden, or a guy with a great curveball like Fernando Valenzuela, was just everything for the young sports gamer nerd in 1987 when this game came out. I think it might have came out in 88 here. I'm not sure.
I think it might have been earlier, 86. I think this one is
it's based on, I did a little research this morning, and it's like the same as a Japanese game, but then they added the MLB people here.
Yeah, Famista is the series.
Yeah. And they ended up, I didn't even realize they made like 100 of those games in Japan.
Oh yeah, they even had one on the DS or 3DS. Like they never stopped. Basically, this was the only game that they released like that in the US. And then RBI Baseball 2, they changed it to look, the players looked skinnier.
Yeah.
They changed the game up for like the US. So they never released it with that charm that made this one, so high on our list.
Yeah.
But all the Famista games are like that.
Huh. Interesting. That's pretty cool.
We even played, me and my brother, we played one of the ones on Super Nintendo, and there's a Famista game on the N64. We played both of those.
Wow.
They're ones you should check out. I mean, if you love the RBI Baseball series and you're craving more of that, like with just little different nuances, the Famista series is awesome.
I think that's a definite must. I think that'd be a fun little journey to try and check out all those games.
I think so. Like we're on it right now.
Nice.
Well, not right now, but I mean, like within the last year, we have probably about 3 or 4 of the Famista games, ranging from the Nintendo. I have like Famista 93, and he has a couple Super Nintendos and the N64 one. But yeah, they're awesome games. One of the things that you said, like what makes a good sports game is when you could just feel the difference in the players. Like a big batter comes up, he's freaking, like even when it's a foul ball, that thing is just sailing out of the stadium.
And those balls with those aluminum bats, man, those guys really were able to put some major hits on those balls. They just go flying out of the stadium.
And like when the pitchers came up, they could barely hit,
Yeah. It was cool. Like, oh my God. I mean, Andre Dawson, I think, for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure he's the best player in the game. The Hawks.
He's up there. Yeah.
Mark McGwire is pretty huge. Yeah. I mean, you had to put in Mark McGwire. Like, he was on the bench for the American League.
Yeah, I don't play American National League that often, RBI. Pretty much never, but they have all the stacked players on there. And the reason you would use those teams is because there's only 8 teams.
Right.
And then those 2 teams. So there's 10 total. So if you want to use like guys from the Cubs or whatever team, then
right.
you use those teams.
Well, so who's the best team? Who's your favorite team besides American National?
My team to use is the Twins.
Ooh, the Twins. Unexpected. They're okay. They're okay. I think I like the Red Sox. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, no, I'm learning that the Red Sox have like the best lineup. They have a good bench. You bring in a pinch hitter, they get like a boost. So it's always good to clutch bench.
Like Tony Armas.
Yes.
His stats say he has 43 homers. You're trying to figure out how that works off the bench, but maybe he was their DH, or maybe he never actually had that many home runs. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's how I figured out the attributes in that game was by their stats, because they didn't show the attributes even though they're in there. If you want to look at the actual attributes of RBI Baseball, go to the Dini forums. That's like the RBI Baseball forums, and they have each team broken down in like all the attributes for each guy. And
they did, however, they did tell you, I think in the manual, if I'm not mistaken, how how fast everybody was, which was cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not sure. That's when they had limitations on the cartridge, so they would put some of the information they wanted in the game in the manual.
Yeah, but one sort of more, just to kind of close out the RBI Baseball, the best part about this game, so the fact that it's just such a weird, I think maybe more so than other NES cards. It happened to every NES cartridge, but sometimes you couldn't get it, to start up right. Like it just wouldn't be in there right, and it just seemed like this was just due to this little slope right here. It was like the Tengen games were harder than the regular games to like adjust in the console.
Yes.
So sometimes this game would take a while to get going, especially since it came out in like 87, 88. But when you did get it going, right, you knew it right away because of the punk, right? Like as soon as you turn it on, you get that bat, the aluminum bat hitting the ball. And that was always a thrill for us.
If you have issues with that, you could always get one of the 3 Tengen or Nintendo published Tengen games. So there's 2 versions of the RBI Baseball.
Factor. There you go. All right, what else? Yeah. So that's my number 4. What's your number 4?
So my number 4 is from my favorite, one of my favorite series of sports games of all time, and that's NBA Jam TE, Super Nintendo. Now, a lot of these are Super Nintendo, but that's what I had growing up was Super Nintendo. So you could switch in some of the Sega Genesis versions, and NBA Jam TE. This one was the one that had like 10 to 11 versions spread across all different platforms. You had PC, Atari Jaguar, Sega Saturn, PlayStation, the Game Boy, Game Gear. But this is the one I had. So NBA Jam TE. Obviously, this is the sequel to the original NBA Jam.
I definitely had that game. I can't find it. Very sad about that. Don't know where it is.
Yeah, that's not one you want to lose because it's one you could definitely stick in and play and have a great time with. The cool thing about NBA Jam TE for me was just the expanded rosters, because not only now each team has 3 players. When you beat the game, you get even more players.
Awesome.
And then the rookies go to the teams they're supposed to be on, and then you get access to another all-star team. And then, of course, there's the unlockable characters. But NBA Jam TE, one of the reasons it's so good is because they didn't tinker with the formula, which so many developers fail to realize. Like, the original game's already great. Let's just add on to it and make it better, a different game. So to me, this is a different game. I know that you were talking about how I don't know if I could say it's different enough from the original, but for me it is. They also had in this one you could add like those icons where you can just like go on fire for the whole quarter or for a period of time or dunk across the whole court.
Yeah.
Those were just fun to play every once in a while. But for me, I took this game very seriously and I wanted to play it like original arcade style.
Yep. And that's the way to go. That's the way to go. All that stuff was really cool that they had it in there. I really appreciate that they had that stuff in there, but the core gameplay, just keep it real art, keep it simple, just like the first game, and you'll have a great time.
Yeah, one of the things they took out of it that I didn't like is you couldn't break the glass anymore.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I did not like that too much. But in the Super Nintendo version, at least, there was no longer a password system. It had a battery save.
That's pretty. Oh my gosh, that is crucial.
That was definitely huge.
Yeah.
From the original. But yeah, NBA Jam TE, just iconic. Played the crap out of NBA Jam. I believe this one was also a birthday present for me.
Nice.
Just totally obsessed with the series at the time and still love it to this day.
Yep. And at the end of the day, I ended up deciding it was not its own entity, which between the two of us, you would think that maybe I would be more prone to putting that on the list since I did have a recent triumph with the game.
Yeah.
Adam Morrison says, "What up? He's on fire. On Vega." But yeah, no, that game's great. I mean, obviously, I think I would probably rather play that game than the original NBA Jam. But anyways, cross that bridge when we get there.
Oh yeah,
get there. It's funny that you ended up doing that, and then I ended up doing this crap for this franchise. But at the end of the day, I just felt there was enough difference. I put RBI 3 at number 3. So, universally regarded as, this is the classic, RBI Baseball. RBI 2 was fine. RBI 2 and RBI 3 are pretty similar. But at the end of the day, it just came down to the fact that I was obsessed with this game. And this is, for us, we're not trying to, say, these are the classic, groundbreaking games. We're trying to say, what games did we enjoy the most? What are the best games? What games did we enjoy playing the most? So that's why you end up with something like this. The potentially controversial decision of RBI 3 even being included and then putting it ahead of RBI 1. It doesn't even have aluminum bats, just wooden bats in this one. They're like little sticks. The guys look like regular players. And it plays very realistically. You still have just the basic RBI style where, you got fastball, slow ball, pitch it left, pitch it right, move around the batter's box, move around the pitcher's mound. Still got that core mechanic. But now you have every team. They all have deep rosters. They all have big pitching staffs. And it's just very realistic. The stamina is now more realistic. Just the overall gameplay is more realistic. Just very subtly more realistic. And, I just love that game. I just love this game. Just play it.
Yeah. Well, it is an RBI game, and I don't think they took any of the gameplay features out of it. For me, it's just one that I didn't get to experience much at the time. And going back to it, knowing that there was RBI 2 and 3, I can never get past the look of it versus the first one. I just loved the first one, the way it looked, the way it played, and the second and third one they don't have that same look to them. And for some like me, it's just hard to get over that. So I think I need to sink a little bit more time into it. If it's on your top 3. It's got to be something special.
Crazy. I mean, basically all I really did on this was sometimes I would just pick a random team and just kind of play. It would kind of just give you random opponents. And kind of keep your if you just kept playing with the same team over and over again, your pitchers would you'd have to put the next pitcher in. There wasn't a season thing or anything, but it had classic teams like all the pennant winners going back to like 1983 or 84, which was fun.
And by this time, they had all the MLB teams in there.
Yeah, well, they had that. First of all, that was big. They had that in RBI 2. In this one,
they have the logos too?
Don't think so.
No, it was just player's license again.
Yeah, just the player. It didn't. Yeah. I don't even think they even really mentioned the team names, to tell you the truth. So they probably didn't have the MLB license, but you know, they had the colors of each team. You could have fooled us at that point. That wasn't that crucial. But so one just kind of random thing I want to get into with this game is I don't remember how the frick you're supposed to access it, but there was like some little trick you could pull, like at the beginning of the game, like if you hit select or I'm sad I don't remember what to do. I just thought of this, but you could basically end up playing like a team of the developers, and they were all just super stacked. Or I don't even know if they were developers. They were just these random name dudes, and it was just a super team. And like, I just remember the cleanup hitter. His name was Me Mike Me, MEMIKEME, Me Mike Me, and he had 72 homers. I think that was his stat line. So basically, Me Mike Me ended up with legendary status in my household. Just don't mess with Me Mike Me. Do not give Me Mike Me anything he could hit, because he will friggin' destroy you. But I remember the first time I ever beat that team with the Oakland A's, I was all fired up. You know, I was like, wow, finally beat the legendary team with the likes of Terry Steinbach and Walt Weiss. But yeah, I don't know. RBI 3 just for me, you know, it's really most about just those memories and just you know, just all the fun that we had playing it. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just, you know, for these sports games, it's like how, like, can you play it against a person over and over again? Like, can you still, like, is the gameplay subtle enough and, you know, realistic? Is there enough like strategy involved? Like, I think that's a key factor in a lot of these games, and RBI nails that. RBI nails that hard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Number 3.
I'm ready for my number 3. And it is a Nintendo 64 game, and it is from the NBA Jam series. It is NBA Hangtime.
Ooh.
So NBA Hangtime was a reaction to something that happened between Acclaim and Midway, where Acclaim acquired the NBA Jam name from Midway. And I believe Tim Kitzrow actually in a podcast recently revealed how that happened. I think the guy from Acclaim, I don't know, he became the president, or he ended up working for the NBA is what happened.
Okay.
A guy from Acclaim ended up working for the NBA, so somehow they finagled the NBA Jam name away from Midway. So okay. Midway, still wanting to build on their NBA Jam TE momentum, created NBA Hangtime. And NBA Hangtime had an arcade cabinet. Now, at the time, I never experienced the NBA Jam or NBA Hangtime arcade cabinet, but one of my friends, his name was also Tom growing up. Does he have a different name now, or what's that?
Does he have a different name now, or is he still Tom?
No, it's still Tom. I don't know. Some of the stuff I'm saying is probably off, but you know, it's getting late, and we're talking about the big games now. NBA Hangtime. So he was an early adopter of the N64, and he only had 2 games: Mario Kart 64 and NBA Hangtime.
Don't need much more than that.
Yeah, you really don't need much more than that. So NBA Hangtime, me and him would play on the same team, and we just, you know, went through all the teams like you do in these games, arcade style. I had my record on his console. It was a great time, me and him just playing through the game. It has updated rosters. Now you have more expansive rosters than you did in NBA Jam TE. Each team has like 20 options. So there's like, I think there's 5 players on each team. Yep. The cool thing about NBA Hangtime for the Nintendo 64 is that it has the stacked 96, 97 rookies. So you have like Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen.
Whoa, hold on a sec. See, I had this for the Super Nintendo, and I didn't have any of those fools.
No. So that's why this one has all those guys. And this one
That
is
hurts.
like, not many games on a Nintendo 64 really showed what a 2D powerhouse it was. Because obviously they're showing the 3D graphics, but this was still a 2D version. So this game is pretty much arcade perfect.
Oh man,
one of the first ones. So not only is it arcade perfect, but now you have like one of the best rookie classes of all time in NBA in this game.
I had this for the Super Nintendo. I played it a lot, and you're making me feel like I'm really missed out here.
You totally missed out on this one. It's you've obviously played the game for Super Nintendo. It adds things like alley-oops and double dunks, as they call them, baseline leaners. You can also hit the turbo button twice to do a spin move to avoid pushes. So that's another thing that it does. The one thing about NBA Hangtime, though, playing all the versions, is it's more defensive minded overall than the whole series. Like blocks are easier, and the pushing's still the pushing, so you can get a lot of steals that way. But NBA Hangtime brings it all to the table. One of the other things too is the announcer is not Tim Kitzrow like the NBA Jam games and NBA Showtime. It's actually Neil Funk. Neil Funk was the radio announcer for the Bulls during the 90s when they were winning the championships.
Nice.
But he's been the TV broadcaster, local TV broadcaster, for probably a good 10 years now. So there's a little tidbit there. But if you haven't played NBA Hangtime on the Nintendo 64, you got to do it. It is hands down the best version. And in this era, for me, it's up there in the top 3.
Yeah, I remember kind of really wanting this for the N64, but I think my cousin had it for the Super Nintendo, and I was like, all right, that'll do. All those little things you mentioned, like the spin move, the alley oops, the dunks, that stuff that was huge. But for me, the baseline leaner, that's such a subtle thing, but that animation was just so sick. There's nothing like that at the time.
Well, the game, this game still looked incredible on 64. Super Nintendo and Genesis.
Yeah.
Like when they made Hangtime, now you could see the player faces even on the ports. Because on NBA Jam and NBA Jam TE, they just have sprites that are like, tall black guy or small white guy or whatever. And that's pretty much how they looked, unless you were Horace Grant and you got your own with the goggles.
Yep.
But by Hangtime, the guys looked like, they looked. And
yeah, it was good. They had faces. It was awesome. It was cheap.
And Nintendo 64, it looks the best. Like I said, arcade, perfect. So DT, you got to get this version and play it, man.
Missed out, man. At the end of the day, it didn't make my top 25. I don't know, just not enough play. Combined with the fact that I didn't feel it really separated itself from the other NBA jams. But anyway, here's my number 2, okay? I just grouped it all, baby. All the Hangtime, TE, it's all right here. Jam, whoa, jam, NBA Jam. And for me, it all goes back to the arcade. I just think, all the console versions, for the most part, are pretty epic. I don't think I ever played a crappy version of NBA Jam, on a Super Nintendo, Genesis, whatever. It was all good. N64. I never played that one. I don't know if I ever played that one, actually, the N64 anytime. But, all the jams. What?
What did you said that you didn't play some on the N64?
I don't think I ever played the jam and Hangtime on the N64.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Not once. But I was just saying. But that first time that you saw NBA Jam in the arcade, just basically dropped a nuclear bomb on the sports gaming world. and just decimated everything that had come before it. And all of a sudden now we got NBA Jam. And, I mean, they only had 2 guys per team. Some of the choices of players made very little sense, such as Dallas had little-known point guard Mike Isolino, who went on in infamy because if you went to play the game, you'd play Dallas first, because they were always the least selected team in the area, unless you're playing in the greater Dallas area, I suppose. But so everybody got a taste of Mike Isolino, who was just a scrappy point guard that for some reason got selected for their team. And but of course, anytime the computer's playing with anybody on NBA Jam, they're going to do a little bit of work on you because they're going to come back on your ass if you're good, or they're going to splash threes in your face if you don't guard them. But I mean, the gameplay was awesome. Seattle, inexplicably, had Benoit Benjamin to join Sean Kemp, and Gary Payton was so, Gary Payton just couldn't get over that. He ended up going to Midway and saying, "Man, I want to be on this game." So they made him a special cabinet with him on the Supersonics, and they made Ken Griffey Jr. a playable character for him, apparently.
Yeah, the story goes that it's Jordan, Payton, and Griffey Jr. on one team.
Yeah, that's just what he wanted, or that's what they thought he would want. I don't know, whatever the case. But there's some epic cabinet out there in the world, in GP's basement or something. But yeah, I mean, this was for years. Just try what do you want to do? If my family was on vacation or something, let's go find an arcade. I want to play NBA Jam. Maybe see if there's NBA Jam around. And guess what? You typically found one because the game was insanely popular. So, and then when Tournament Edition came out, that just was even more, good stuff. In the end of the day, I decided it wasn't different enough to include it in its own spot, but they successfully evolved the series, in my opinion. The Tournament Edition is the one that I'd want to play the most, probably right now. But it was all good. It was all good.
Yeah, no, the NBA Jam, the original, is also number 2 on my list. I have the Super Nintendo cartridge here, but the first time I experienced it was at the community college in my area. Mom was taking me there for some sort of summer class, and then there it was in their lounge, NBA Jam, and it's stay in school, it was on the attract mode. And I guess the community college wasn't getting enough money in tuition because they had NBA Jam there. I mean, it was awesome. I was just, my mind was blown. I was like, what is this? And then I'm looking at the attract mode and I'm recognizing the players when they're playing. I'm I saw those guys on TV. I'm this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. So it was expensive too at the time. You're talking 1992, 93, and it's 50 cents to play 1 quarter. So that's pretty much all I got to play. My mom was giving me more than 50 cents.
You'd have to really kind of sweet talk your parents into hooking you up with some quarters or a couple dollars to change them into quarters. It was a big deal. It was a huge thing. Just that was. Every time we would go somewhere, it's that just became the centerpiece of the whole trip. Trying to get trying to find NBA Jam. Usually if your parents were on vacation or something, they were willing to fork up a couple quarters. If we were just at the local mall, it probably wasn't going to happen. You're probably just going to have to go there and just watch some other people play it. So yeah, NBA Jam took over. So we both had it at number 2. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I still love it to this day. Like I said, in this one, you break the glass. It's just core arcade gameplay. Now, the other thing I want to say about this one, though, is I'm pretty confident in saying that I think this one is better for competitive play. And the reason I say that is there is
about versus the arcade or versus just the Genesis?
Versus NBA Jam TE.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Now there are only 4 factors of how good each player is, and they're not all 100% accurate. Like Reggie Miller's 3 points isn't all the way up, stuff like that.
How's that possible?
But the pushing and is one of the overpowered things in NBA Jam. But there's only 2 players on each team in this, and you could push a guy down as many times as you want. He still has the same speed. In NBA Jam TE, you get over that 10 mark, the guy can't even move.
True.
So, this is the core arcade gameplay, NBA Jam. This is the one that blew it out of the water. Yeah. I think this is probably the better competitive version, but we'll see.
I like the tactics in TE now, but of course, maybe I'm just biased. You know what I'm saying? But,
yeah, well, you've had some success, so.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's all good. It's all good in my opinion. Hangtime is all good. Like just that 2-on-2 action can't be beat. Well, or maybe it can. Maybe there's one thing out there in the retro sports world that can beat it. The top of the crop.
The cream of the crop.
Oh, TSB, baby. This is what we're doing?
Yeah. Like Tecmo Super Bowl NES.
Or as it's known, just Tecmo. Or as I would just call it Techie back in the day. Or TSB. Yeah, there's no doubt. There's not even really a close second. I mean, NBA Jam is a close second, but what I was about to say is it's not really. There's not really a close second for a game that I've played the most in my life. Like this is it.
Yeah, me neither. This is the game I played the most.
It's just they from the very start wanted to make a game. Their goal was clearly to make a game that you could play over and over again. And how they accomplished that, number one, they made a season. So you could redo seasons over and over again. And with the random nature of the NFL, different stuff could happen, obviously. Number two, they put conditions in there. So each game, even if you just play an exhibition game, it's going to be different every time. Guys are going to be a little different rating-wise. And that's kind of the way, I mean, I don't know why people hadn't thought of that and really haven't really used that very much since. It's kind of the way sports work. You have on nights, off nights. And then the biggest reason why there's so much replay value is because with 11 on 11, there's just a lot of strategy. There's a lot of strategy, a lot of depth in the game. So I mean, I think those are the key, probably the key moments. But I mean, it's gonna be really hard to wrap up this little chat here because there's just so much.
There's so much to talk about. One of the things that I like to say is at the time when this game came out in 1991, it is the best simulation football experience that you can have. But then, fast forward to where we're at 2018, and it's the best football arcade experience that you could have. Like, there's no other game that you could say that about.
It just kind of kept its keep it fun roots. You play a game like 15, 20 minutes, depending on how often your opponent checks his conditions. I try to keep it quick, I feel like the nature of Tecmo, the spirit of Tecmo is let's keep it going, pick your play, let's go, just like the rhythm, there's a rhythm to it. It's got the arcade feel, and I mean, all the animations and stuff they put in, that was just next level. There's nothing even close to that at the time. And it has not really been utilized. There's just so many things about Tecmo Super Bowl where you could say, changed everything, and then how come people haven't been using this stuff?
Yeah, still. Yeah. The cutscene animations, some of them you'll see pretty much every game. Some of them you'll rarely see, like the double jump. It's like an epic cutscene. You don't know what's going to happen.
We call it the Superman.
Yeah.
And it was just like the first time you saw it, you'd already seen like several jump animations in similar, circumstance. Then you get this Superman thing, this epic 2-part, series of, and then you don't even know who comes down, and your guy comes down with it. It's just like, whoa! There's so much. This game is next level. That was at the time we thought the first person who ever did it for me was Barry Sanders, and I was just convinced that was a special Barry Sanders thing. Then I saw like some guy like Rob Thomas do it or something. I was like, well, maybe it's not. But man, just going through, back in the day, like this game basically started epic for me, and it has never let up. I'm still finding fun stuff to do with this game in 2018. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many little intricacies in the matchups.
Yeah.
That like, I'm promoting the hardcore tournament right now, but even like day by day as I go, I'm like thinking of different strategies. Like, oh, I think I could beat this team with Tampa Bay because I got Wayne Haddix. It's like there's so much depth and like little things like a quarterback's 25 max speed versus a quarterback's 13 max speed. Well, that's the difference between a scrambler and not a scrambling quarterback.
Right.
Just in the way that we play at a high level, that extra speed could be the difference between a 3-yard gain and a 8-yard gain on a scramble. So it's
stuff like that. Really small stuff, just like stuff that like the average Joe just wouldn't even notice at first glance. But the thing is, so my whole thing with this game is you got the most deep game at the time that still has layers that we're still peeling off, 20, 30 years later here. But then if you're playing somebody who really doesn't understand all that stuff, it could still be a competitive game.
Yeah,
because they can throw the ball 100 yards. So, and there's other things of that nature, arcadey type elements that you can just pick up and you could play the game. Like just somebody could pick up and play the game. So it still has that going for it, which is a huge barrier for some of these types of games. Like if you were like really good at like NBA 2K something, and you try to play some jabron who wasn't really familiar with the game, would not be fun. It would just be a waxing. I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't take that long potentially for someone to kind of get into Tecmo Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that's the game's just fun the way you play it. The fact that when you come in contact with another player, you get into a little tussle, and then you gotta tap as fast as you can, like a track and field game, to throw that player off of you. And that's like an impact point on like every play. I mean, it's just epic, really.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable that they thought that they put this thing together the way they did. And it's just a couple, it's just a handful of dudes from Japan who were just kind of, pulling together, pulling videos, getting people to send videos and magazines from the States over them to watch, and kind of just making their choices. And I mean, people like to clown on certain ratings, for being what they are. But at the end of the day, I mean, they pretty much nailed it. Like they made the really good players larger than life, and they did a pretty good job with just variants of the rosters. So like, I mean, each team is interesting in its own way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the little speed differences, the little, this guy's got high interceptions versus low, or this guy's like Darrell Green on the Redskins is super fast, but his interceptions are low. Like all those little things make a big difference to what happens on the field. And like the deeper you get into it, that. But like you said, if you just are good at the game or you just want to play, you could still like beat a guy who knows like everything about the game.
Here's I think maybe for me, one of the major points about why this game is where it is versus certain other games such as Madden games, or other football games, or other sports games, is just a very small thing, but something that nobody really thinks about that much. But when you're playing on defense, okay, the guy you're controlling is super fast. He's just faster than everybody else, or he's basically the one guy that, all the other defenders are kind of doing their own thing. The computer's not that great at defense, but when you're a guy that you're controlling has a huge impact, and all the defenders can track down the offensive players with just straight speed. Now, there's tricks you can do on offense to get away from them, but I guess what I'm trying to say is they made defense fun. Whereas in other games, it's just a straight simulation, basically. Like who you're controlling doesn't matter that much. If you're really good at certain Madden games, you can have a big impact on the game, but it's mostly just the chess match, the pieces, the play call, and then something happens, and there's going to be a seam there or there won't. You don't really have that much say over it. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Tecmo Super Bowl, it's all about you and what you're doing. You can get away from people with your running back if you have enough skill. There's going to be some opportunity. You can throw a pass with perfect timing. If you know when to throw it. You can on defense, you can shut down stuff by being in the right spot. So that just makes all the difference in the world.
No, I agree. It's funny you say that because I played the Madden games on defense like it was Tecmo Super Bowl. Me being from Chicago, I'd always use the Bears.
Yeah.
Urlacher's in the middle of the field. And the middle linebacker really doesn't have a ton of responsibility. Maybe he's guarding a running back, or he could QB spy him, or he's in the middle of the field. So I would always just stick to him and try to figure out what play they're doing. And that's kind of what you do in Tecmo Super Bowl. You're usually either one of the best defenders on the team, either on the top side or the bottom side of the defense, depending on how you read the formation. And then the other thing that we didn't talk about either is the element of the guessing of, can I blitz? If you guess the play, chances are you could break it up for a loss pretty much every time.
Yeah, it just makes it simple and more of a fun experience besides the usual experience of pro football games where it's more hardcore, like math. I don't know, it's more like, you just have less say in things in Madden. You don't really fully understand what your decisions are doing. If it was because of the play that you called or because of the certain things happened that were random. In Tecmo, you just know what's going on. You pick their play, they got squished right away.
Yeah.
You pick the pass, you're going to defend the pass better. You pick the run, you're going to defend the run better. For the most part, that's
pretty much how it is. Yep.
So, of course, they somehow managed to make each play a little tiny bit different, even though there's certain combinations of that could happen a lot. You pick the run, they pick the run, but there's certain little different things that happen each time. And what can I say? It's never really got old, has it?
No, and the other thing I like to say about Tecmo Super Bowl and the NES is that it has the most characters in any NES game, because they added the player profile pictures and the fact that the players, what they do on the field, they have kind of like superpowers almost.
Yeah.
Like Bo Jackson's the fastest.
Yep. QB with the speed and power, just totally unique. He's so much more unique than any other player in that game.
Yeah, so it's the little things like that. It's like the game's just so expansive.
And probably one other thing that didn't hurt is I think you might be able to convince me that 1990 NFL was about the most loaded league for fun players. You know what I mean? Just that time capsule there. You just have so many superstars in the mix. That makes a huge difference,
Yeah, no, and some of them weren't breakout stars yet, but they were in the game. So I remember just playing the game in the mid 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s, and some of these guys are still playing they're still in Tecmo Super Bowl. So you're still experiencing those guys that are in the current NFL in that game. And yeah, you're right. There's just a ton of star power, and then there's star power that you come to realize because of their player attributes.
Yeah.
That, like, like Wayne Haddock's on the Bucks, not really a superstar, but in our mind, he's a superstar forever.
I mean, they just wanted to juice it up. I think he had 8 picks that year.
Yeah.
So he had a huge year, but as it turned out, he ended up, interceptions are kind of random. He was just a guy. But
right place, right time.
Yeah, he ends up being a legend. But most of the guys, though, you got like Barry Sanders, Bo Jackson, Joe Montana, Randall Cunningham, Thurman Thomas, Lawrence Taylor, Derek Thomas. These are guys that got huge stat ratings, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's how they should be. Those guys were larger than life at that time, and that's where they belong. So it's just cool. Like I just can't imagine like a game that came out like for being the NFL in 1990 was the perfect vehicle for someone to make an epic game that changed the whole landscape.
Yeah. And even Eric Dickerson on the Colts is missing. That's another huge superstar at the end of his career.
You got no dick.
Yeah.
He made the game with no dick.
Could have changed the value of that whole team.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Colts are garbage. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's how I'm just going to put that out there for the world. Colts suck on Tecmo Super Bowl.
I don't think it's any mystery at this point.
Well, I said it. So there. Niners are good, though.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Hot takes. I got hot takes for you here.
So there it is. Tecmo Super Bowl, best game of the era in Atari 2600 to Nintendo 64. And I think we'd probably both agree. We think that's the best retro sports game of all time, even in, with later consoles.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely my favorite game ever. Like, not just retro sports game, but it's my favorite game ever. It's the game I played the most. This is the game that I still go back to the most, like the most revisits. I don't think I've gone a year without playing Tecmo Super Bowl. That's probably the only game I can say that about.
Yeah, I think that, I go back to NBA Jam too, just as not as much as Tecmo Super Bowl, but I always play that. But sometimes it's just one of the games out of the series. With Tecmo Super Bowl, so I go back to Tecmo Super Bowl. I have mad respect for Tecmo Bowl and what it is. It's also an epic game, and it's the second best football game in the NES, in my opinion. If I grew up in a different era, I might say something different. But Tecmo Super Bowl just blew it out of the water.
Yeah, and I think it would still be number one by a long shot. We didn't even talk about the huge online scene and all the tournaments.
Yeah,
including Madison. Just like I've been to so many tournaments over the years, and that's just a huge part of it. It's just epic. Like,
well, the fact that all exists,
competitive game,
and how much effort people put into playing online still to this day.
Yeah,
just that shows how remarkable this game is. Like, that just doesn't exist for all these other retro sports games. NHL 94 is one of the other ones, but
that's pretty much it. I mean, I feel like NHL 94 is super legit online and tournament scene, but Tecmo Super Bowl dwarfs it still, you'd have to say. And there really isn't even anything else that's even really in the discussion. Maybe RBI Baseball, but
yeah, I think RBI, if it had more teams and it had if RBI had everything Tecmo Super Bowl did, I think it would be up there. But it's just less teams, no access to looking at the player ratings, no player profiles, no season mode.
In the season, I mean, and even any baseball game is never going to have that for a season you know, the NFL season is just such a crispy, clean, fun thing to do.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too. You could just get through it. It's only 16 games in the playoffs, whereas like you grind out a baseball season or an NBA or NHL season, you have to like limit the amount of games because 82, that's a rough one, or baseball even 162.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, and the way they did it too, you know, with all the when you win the division, you know, when you win the championship, and then the huge Super Bowl thing, like I don't even think the new Maddens are even really touching that as far as, you know, just sort of providing that feeling, you know, that extra feeling. It's crazy. Anyway, so hey, why don't we wrap this up? Why don't we just hit them up with some rapid fire honorable mentions?
Yeah, let's do that. Honorable mentions. You want to go first, or you want me to go?
Okay, I'm gonna throw a few out there. I'm not even gonna get into these, but I'll just say Tecmo Super Bowl 2, you know, is a great game that just didn't make my top 25. Tecmo Super Bowl for the PlayStation, pretty sweet. Just never got into it. You know, all the Madden games are great. Like even the first Madden games are awesome. They're just not, you know, they're not in my top 25. Hot Shots Golf, great series, started on the PlayStation. Those games are just amazing, but I never had a PlayStation. Baseball Stars, you know, with all the fun stuff you could do to build your team. At the end of the day, the gameplay, I mean, I probably mostly just didn't get into it, but we had we kind of agree the gameplay just doesn't, it's just so much not good enough compared to, say, RBI Baseball, in our opinion. And then, you know, I did mention like the Bulls versus Blazers and NBA Showdown. Like those were pretty sweet games at the time. And then I'll just mention a couple more that didn't quite make my list. Blades of Steel, Saturday Night Slam Masters for the Super Nintendo.
Wrestling game.
Yeah, that's a good wrestling game. Kind of in the vein of pro wrestling for the NES, I'd say. It was I think Capcom made it, and it had like the same kind of mechanics as like, say, Final Fight. It even had Hagar from Final Fight. And that was an epic game. And then I'll just throw out a couple more random games. Just to recap, we already went over this. We decided Punch Out was more of a puzzle game than a sports game.
Yeah.
But come on, Punch Out is clearly it's a top 20. I mean, it's an epic game. And then just one more I'll throw out there, great NES game that didn't make my top 25, but I just think deserves a mention, is Super Spike V-Ball, or Super Spike Volleyball. Just a fun beach volleyball game that was pretty deep. It was a late NES game that deserves some props.
Yeah, I have that one. I haven't played it too much, so I'll have to check that one out if it's on your honorable mentions.
It's definitely an honorable mention. I feel pretty good about that. Super Spike V-Ball is a classic. I don't know. We just always thought it was funny that they didn't want to put the whole volleyball word in there. They just put V apostrophe ball. So we ended up just saying Super Spike the Ball.
It's pretty much what you do in volleyball.
Yeah, it's good times.
All right, I'm going to go through my honorable mentions. My first one's Tecmo Bowl in the NES. If I, you know, grew up in a different era, it would probably be on my top 25. Mad respect for the game. It's one that I still do play. FIFA 99 on Nintendo 64. Wasn't much into soccer games, but for some reason that one hit the spot. Good, easy, pick up and play soccer.
I've heard a ton of just people praising that crap out of that game, and I think I played it like once for like a couple matches, and I remember liking it a lot, but just wasn't in the budget to get or whatever, so missed out really. That definitely deserves props though.
Yeah, I would check that one out. It's a good one for sure. NFL Blitz on the Nintendo 64. That is the console port to get. It's one-on-one action. Obviously, it's the first one before NFL Blitz 99, the arcade cabinet, and NFL Blitz 2000. Great game. NHL 96 was one of the games on your top 25. It's not as it's more arcadey. They added a lot of things that made it cool, like the jock jams in at the
Oh
beginning.
yeah.
NHL on Fox, stuff like that. Fun arcade hockey game for sure.
Yep.
Another game that was in your top 10 was NBA Live 95. So obviously don't need to talk about that more. Mutant League Football on the Genesis.
Good call.
I didn't own the game, didn't experience it a ton, but when I played it, I was like, there's something to this game. This is a lot of fun.
Same experience for me. It was just like, wow, there's something here. But didn't really get into it.
The last one that's a recent one this year is an NES game, Nintendo World Cup Soccer. Totally caught me off guard. I was expecting it to kind of suck, and when I put it in, it was like a battle royal soccer game.
It has a lot of cool stuff, lots of special moves, and each team is different. That's a winner. That's a winner right there.
Yeah, that one rounds it out for me. I want to play that game more. It's also a game that you can play 4-player on the Nintendo. I'm sure that has to be one of the best 4-player experiences you could have. I haven't done it yet, but that's one I want to play. It's it's just a fun arcade soccer game. Not anything close to simulation, but it's like the NFL Blitz of soccer. Pretty much.
I'm really glad you mentioned that game. I'm kind of thinking maybe I might have to squeeze it in there, but nah, it's an honorable mention for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. So I'm down to play that with anybody. That, like, if I experience that one more, I think that game could make the top 25 for sure.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on in that game. And the 4-player, that was one of the first 4-player. That 4-player thing came out with that game, and Super Spike V-Ball. They all came out around the same time. It was a huge deal for Nintendo, and I think that sort of groundbreaking factor elevates those games a lot.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that pretty much does it for our top 25 and top 10 tonight. Obviously, we give you our long-winded responses for each game, but have a lot of passion and love for each of these games that we chose. So we got to let it all out there on the table. DT, before we close this out, anything else?
No, I just, looking forward to talking a little more Tecmo down the road here, because you had some adventures. I won my online league. Shout out to the WTF family. Pittsburgh Steelers, 1990 champions. So that was a big moment for me. The gift keeps giving. Tecmo. Just when you think you got a humpy wild card, or a humpy, just snuck in the playoffs, won my division 9-7, then just went on a miracle run with Jim Kelly leading me to the promised land. So, that's just one of just 1,000 different things you can do with that game, and that's just one of a million different reasons why it's the best ever. I'm really glad that we can just say it. I feel like we proved no one has ever been able to prove it as number one as definitively as we did with this series here, because we went so deep on all the other games.
Yeah, I think so. And then we talked about Tecmo Super Bowl for like a half an hour. So if you can't figure out that it is the best game of all time within that conversation, then come at us and tell us why. But I don't think you're going to convince us otherwise.
Nope, you won't convince me at all. Although if you say that it's NBA Jam, I will accept your answer. So if you say it's RBI Baseball, I will still like you. If you say it's something else, it's going to be a little bit of it's going to be some questions in the back of my mind.
Oh man. Well, thanks again for joining me. And yeah, I definitely want to talk to you more about Tecmo Super Bowl and some of the tournaments that we play in the future. So cool. Thanks for joining me. And Rogue Gamer, thanks for sticking around in the chat the whole time. Had a good time conversating with you when we were talking. And everyone, have a good night. Let us know what you think about our top 10 tonight.
Shout out to all the great games and all the great gamers out there. We'll check you next time, Tom. Have a good one.
Take care.